Today, you're going to visit a place in Kinston where times long past have been preserved. It's a place where time is standing still for you, so you can thoughtfully investigate some early history of Kinston and Lenoir County. What you'll see and learn will allow you to imagine what living here was like in the years of the late colonial period through the early 20th century. It's our hope that you'll gain a deeper appreciation for your ancestors and a fresh perspective on the heritage that's ours. It's our hope that you'll want to become an activist in the preservation of our local history. Hello, we're standing at the corner of South Queen Street and East King Street, and we'll be walking east on King Street. Here on our left, you'll recognize the south side of the Lenoir County Courthouse. It stands stone solid stern, quite a contrast to the white wood house with a mysterious air that's across the street. The marker informs us that this is Harmony Hall, an historic landmark significant for its role during the Revolutionary War. But this 231-year-old restored house has lived through many other historical ages since then. Over the years, it's been a private home, a Civil War hospital, the Kinston Women's Club meeting house, and a public library. The Lenoir County Historical Association took ownership of Harmony Hall in 1975. With a great deal of local support, research, and guidance from the North Carolina Department of Archives and History, its restoration was accomplished in 1984. It's a house full of old treasures and intriguing tales of historical significance. You'll enjoy and can learn much from a visit here. We extend a warm invitation that you do so. However, today you're going to the old one-room schoolhouse that stands behind Harmony Hall and is a part of the Historical Association's properties. Now let's walk through the gate to the garden. A landscape committee from the membership of the Historical Association carefully researched and developed this garden so it would be historically true to the landscape of an 18th century house such as Harmony Hall. The Kinston Garden Club has faithfully preserved and maintained the integrity of the garden over the past 20 years. To your left, you see an early 19th century smokehouse. Now relics of the past, smokehouses with their hand-smoked walls and ceilings were a common sight throughout the rural countryside. This smokehouse was donated to the association by Mr. and Mrs. Sam Mewburn, Jr. Beyond the smokehouse, facing McElwain Street, you can see the site of another historical building owned by the association. It dates from the 1850s, and at that time was a parsonage for a church, and much later it was owned by Henry and Lily Archbell. Lily Archbell was a devoted member and mover in the North Carolina United Daughters of the Confederacy. For the UDC cause, she edited and published from this house during the years 1912 to 1914 a magazine called Carolina and the Southern Cross. Its purpose was to preserve local history, particularly stories and memories of the Civil War strife as told by North Carolinians who lived through the era. Heritage Place of Lenoir Community College Library houses the entire magazine. It's an important source of local history for those times. Currently, the association is renting the Archbell House to Abilities Incorporated, an ice cream and pastry shop. Now here we are at the schoolhouse. It was originally located about 20 miles from here at Hargis Crossroads in Jones County. So while we can't claim it as a Lenoir County structure, it's representative of the many rural one- and two-room schoolhouses that dotted the North Carolina countryside at the turn of the century. This school, formerly the Hargis School, was built around 1910. At that time in our history, it was the belief and law that all of our children should have the right to a free public education. It was also accepted belief and law that the black and white races should be educated separately. Thus, there were schoolhouses for white children only and schoolhouses for black children only. This one was a school for white children, grades 1 through 7. Now let's take a walk around the school and notice its architecture. On this side, a bank of windows. Note the roll tin roof with a chimney in the center. In the back, 2 windows. On the other side, no windows, just a solid plank wall. In front, no windows, just a one-door entrance. In the 1924 publication, Survey of the Public Schools of Lenoir County, we're informed that at that time there were 15 one-teacher schools in operation in the county. Also at that time, the state consolidation plan for all school systems in North Carolina was well underway. Lenoir County was ready to move into the 20th century with new schools that were large brick structures with modern facilities, equipment, and bus transportation. The small 1- and 2-room schoolhouses were no longer needed and were decommissioned as schools. What happened to these one-room schoolhouses? Here are some photographs of other old schoolhouses still standing in Lenoir County today. Some are in the same spot where they were built originally and have been put to other uses. Others have been bought and moved to different sites by persons interested in preserving the historical value of the one-room schoolhouse that once was, but is no more. This is the former Airy Grove School, a school for white children located in Vance Township near Taylor's Crossroads. It was built around 1900. Here's the former Vine Swamp School, a school for black children built around 1917. It began as a one-teacher school and in time was enlarged to a 3-teacher school, offering grades 1 through 3 for about 100 children. It's located on the corner of Vine Swamp Road and Lightwood Knott Road in the Woodington Township. This is the former Piney Grove School, built in the early 1900s. It's located in the Neuse Township near Albritton's Crossroads. It was for white children. Here's the former Gilbert School, built around 1905 in the Hugo vicinity for black children. It was a school for 20 years. After closing, it was used for several purposes, including a Sunday school building and a dwelling. The porches were added when it became a house to live in. There are a few other old schoolhouse structures still standing in Lenoir County. If you're interested in investigating them and other historical buildings and homes in Kinston and Lenoir County, you'll want to look into the Lenoir County Historical Association's publication, Coastal Plain and Fancy, the historic architecture of Lenoir County and Kinston, North Carolina.
I'm Wilbur A. Tundle from Pink Hill. My wife, Margaret Ann Tundle. We both retired 22 years ago. I was a John Deere dealer 30 years. She was a school teacher 30 years. We decided that was enough, so we retired and enjoying our retirement very much. After we retired, we had a lot of time on our hands, so we volunteered for different things. And they asked me would I look after the Hargett Schoolhouse being restored and the Archbell House and the Smokehouse behind Harmony Hall. I told them I would be glad to. I'd furnish my trips and time free and would enjoy looking after the 3 projects. And I did. Well, we had some experience restoring old buildings. We had been to Williamsburg, Virginia, and local buildings had been restored and asked a lot of questions, looked at them and in them. And so we had some experience, and so we decided to try it out. We went to see the Hargett Schoolhouse to see the condition it was in, and it was in bad shape, but it was still worth moving and restoring. It had a porch put on the front, a partition inside, which really had been done for living quarters for folks that to help tend the farm, the Guy Hargett farm. From here to where the schoolhouse was moved is about 20 miles on US 258 towards Jacksonville. We had a house mover between Pink Hill and Beulaville to do the moving, the Turner's House Moving Association, and they did a great job moving it. It took a day to move it. To begin with, let me tell you how a building like this is moved. It was a simple building to move. It was small, it wasn't tall, and it was easy building to move. They jacked it up, put steel beams under it, then wheels under the steel beams, moved it down 258 to where you see it now. We had to replace the window sashes, we had to refloor it, we had to build a new chimney, we had to put new brick pillars under it, and this was done by Rayford Mercer. Lonnie Stroud was the painter, Rayford Mercer was the carpenter, and Paul Whaley was the brick mason. They all drove from Pink Hill over here every day, brought their lunches with them, and I stayed with them a lot and looked after things, and turned out very good. After a building is moved, you have to remove the timbers and beams out from under it and put it back on the new foundation has been made. And so the house movers came back and took the steel beams out from under it and let it back down on the blocks that you see now. We had very few problems. Blizzard Building Supply in Kinston helped us with our materials we needed. Took about a month to restore. We had excellent workers, and it turned out very well, the project did, and we're very happy with it. And now I invite you to go inside with Ms. Zimmerman for a tour of the old Hargett Schoolhouse.
Hello, welcome to our schoolhouse. As you can see, the room is equipped sparsely, just as it was from 1910 till 1933 when it was in operation. There's a wall of windows on one side and a wall of blackboards across from the windows on the other side. This was the standard arrangement in most schools of that time. This arrangement served a twofold purpose. One was so that the children would face the blackboard with the daylight coming in over their shoulders and onto their desktops. It also served to keep the pupils from the distraction of looking out the windows and daydreaming. Notice there's only one entrance, and on either side of the door are shelves for their lunch boxes and pails and hooks for their coats. This is a pot-bellied wood-burning stove that came from Wilbur A. Tyndall's museum in Pink Hill. It dates from about 1930. As you can see, we have many varieties of desks. These back here, these are handmade side-by-side desks. They also came from the Tyndall Museum. Many people who were interested in donating to the schoolhouse bought from Mr. Tyndall and then donated them. These side-by-side desks were given by Mr. and Mrs. Norman Davis of Kinston. These other manufactured desks were given by Mr. and Mrs. J.T. Turner of Pink Hill and Mr. and Mrs. Jeffries of Kinston. These blackboards were given by Mr. and Mrs. Andrew Hill of Deep Run. This is a teacher's desk. We don't know the origin or the donor, but as you can see, it's not a desk that you sit at. It's one that the teacher kept her supplies in. It lifts like this, and she keeps her pencils and papers and books inside. Inside it, we have a document that we're very pleased to have. This is the 1926 lesson plan of the teacher who was teaching here then. She was only 18 years old, and she had just started teaching. The Jones County Board of Education had a teaching supervisor who went around and observed the teachers much like they do today. And so when she came to Miss Parker's classroom to observe, Miss Parker had a lesson plan that was going very well. When the supervisor left, she asked if she could take a copy of the lesson plan. Several months later, at a countywide teachers meeting in Jones County, the supervisor gave out this lesson plan as an example of what a good lesson plan should look like. And so this new teacher was off to a very good start. We also have a couple of bells. This bell was originally at the R.H. Lewis School, which is located about 2 blocks down from here. There's a marker that shows where it was. The Lewis School was private, and it was in operation from 1877 until 1902. The other bell was donated in memory of a William E. and Dolly J. Howard. Apparently it was used in Wayne County in a one-room schoolhouse, Price Crossroads, and the teacher there was Miss Price. Here's a McGuffey reading chart. It's copyrighted 1880. It's interesting to note that before there was Sally, Dick, and Jane and Spot the dog, there was a rat and a boy named Nat, and they both ran. This wonderful chart also has beautiful script that was taught during those times to the children. Once we have gotten electricity installed in this schoolhouse and gotten up protective window shades, we're going to be hanging a number of documents and photos that you will be seeing today. One of them will be this newspaper feature from the Free Press dated 1981. This was the restored schoolhouse preserves an era of history. It's the old Linwood School out in Lenore County. Notice that the architecture is very much like this school. It's an interesting story. The other page from the Free Press that we're going to hang is dated 1986, and this is what Wilbur Tyndall mentioned when he spoke of the restoration. When we finished the schoolhouse restoration and the smokehouse and the gardens, there was a big picnic and a dedication here. Here are a number of people in this photo that had a lot to do with the restoration of the schoolhouse. This is Brian Hargett, his mother, Roddy Ward Atkins, his sister, Mrs. Smith. Behind on back row you see Wilbur Tyndall, and here's Mr. Rayford Blizzard and his wife. The other young people are the children of Mrs. Smith and Mrs. Hargett. Probably the document that is most special to us is this one. This is the original deed of land that was given to the Jones County Board of Education. It's dated October 15, 1909. William B. Hargett and his wife, Deborah Williams Hargett, deeded a ½ acre of land for the school to be built on, and it was to be for the children of that rural area. 75 years later, in 1985, the Hargett family gave this deed to the Historical Association in honor of Rayford Blizzard. Mr. Blizzard had had a lot to do with getting the donation of the house for the association and its restoration. Also, Mr. Rayford Blizzard gave a number of 18th and 19th century artifacts to Harmony Hall. In appreciation of the Hargett family's gift of the school, we want to honor the matriarch of the Hargett family. She was a school teacher. In fact, she taught here at this very school. She was the Hargett School's last teacher before the school was closed down in 1933. That same year, a modern brick consolidated school opened its doors in Comfort, Jones County. This old one-room schoolhouse closed its doors forever as the children were transferred to the new Comfort School. The name of this last teacher at the Hargett School is Roddy Ward Parker Hargett Atkins. Here she is in a photo shortly after she began teaching in 1925. When I discovered that she was very much alive and would be willing to talk to me, we met at her home near Hargett's Crossroads. After talking with her, I knew that your hearing her memories of those years in the schoolhouse would bring to life those times. She has recently celebrated her 96th birthday, but she remembers well when she was 17 and had just graduated from Pollocksville High School in Jones County. By the end of the next summer, when she was 18, she had gotten her first job. The Jones County Board of Education hired her to go to the Tuckahoe Township and teach at the school at Hargett's Crossroads. The year was 1925. Here's a photo of the 17-year-old Righty Ward on the left with her sister Lucy, who also became a teacher. Righty Ward boarded at the Hargett home while she taught at the school that was just a short walk away. Here's a photo of the stately Hargett home, built around 1878. While boarding here, Righty Ward met her husband-to-be, Guy Hargett. He was the son of William Bryan and Deborah Hargett, who had deeded the land for the school. 3 years later, in 1928, they were married. Sadly, Guy died in 1953, leaving her with a daughter and a son. Years later, Righty Ward Hargett married John L. Atkins. He died in 1972. She told me that she had had the two finest men in the world as husbands and had been very happy in each of the relationships. One more photo of the late 1920s. Here are two brothers who attended the Hargett School in 1929. They are first grader Lloyd Smith, known as Cooter, and third grader Leo Smith. The photo was donated by Donnie Smith of Pink Hill, the stepson of Leo Smith. And now I'd like to meet this very special person, who was also the last teacher at this school before it closed down in 1933. Her name is Righty Ward Parker Hargett Atkins. She has brought along 3 of her great-grandchildren who will be asking her some questions that they're wondering about. Let me introduce you to the children. This is Anna Rebecca Hargett. This is William Bryan Hargett IV. And this is Coley Thomas Pritchett. The children call their great-grandmother Bobo.
My father, Martin H. Parker, drove me from Pollocksville, where I had lived all of my life. We went in his Model A Ford. The distance from Pollocksville to Hargett's Crossroads was about 30 miles, and the road was rutted and one-lane road. It took us about 2 hours to get there, but when we met a horse and buggy, we had to stop and pull over and let it pass. This was a courtesy that was practiced by auto drivers so that the horse would not get scared and cause a problem. As we drove along, my daddy gave me fatherly advice. He said, help Ms. Hargett with the housework whatever needs to be done, and become friends with the family. Have them call you Righty Ward, not Miss Parker. The 2 daughters of the Hargett family were grown and gone. The son, Guy, had attended State College and was back home helping his father with the family business, Small Hill Stock Farm. I paid $15 a month for room and board out of my teaching wages of $75 a month. After the first year, I got raises each year. Guy Hargett and I became good friends, and during those first years, and in 1928, when I was 21, we were married. Back to those first days of school. When I went to the schoolhouse on that very first day of school, I was shocked to see that all the windows panes had been broken out and the floor was covered with glass. Meanwhile, 7 students had shown up for the school. I had never seen them and they had never seen me. We spent the morning cleaning up the broken glass. Working together in a big cleanup project was our first day together as a new teacher and new students. It probably broke the ice better than anything we could have done on that first day. We never did find out who broke the windows or why, but they were replaced immediately by the school committee. The photo at 17 years of age was a long time ago, 75 years ago, in fact. But I was 18 when I started teaching school. You're probably wondering how an 18-year-old could be qualified to teach school. Back then, certification was required, but the way we got it was quite different from today's process. The need for teachers was great, especially in rural areas, but getting a college degree was out of reach for most high school graduates. In this era, East Carolina College in Greenville was our best option. I had planned to go there, but other opportunities arose that I pursued instead. In order to recruit and serve teachers, the state had developed a system whereby professors from our major colleges and universities would come to the rural areas and teach summer sessions for teacher certification. In this way, I was able to take teaching methods and basic courses from outstanding professors from Duke, Wake Forest, UNC, and Atlantic Christian College in Wilson. I also took correspondence courses. In 1927, I attended the summer session on campus at North Carolina College for Women in Greensboro. Here is a pendant that I kept. I had gotten enough credits during that year after graduation from high school to get an entry-level B certificate, and I had that in hand when I took the first job at Hargett's Crossroads. Within 2 years, I had earned my A certificate. While I started out with only 7 pupils, throughout the year and years to come, the room size fluctuated. The most I ever had at one time was between 20 and 28. But usually there were fewer. These were the children of farmers and tradesmen, and they started helping in their family's occupation at an early age. The school year usually started 1st of October and finished at the end of March in order to accommodate spring planting and fall harvesting. Absences were frequent due to family needs, sickness, or very bad weather. Our school hours were from 8:30 to 4 p.m., Monday through Friday. Most of the children lived within 3 miles of the school, and they walked there and back. William, I believe you have a question.
Yes, Bobo. I didn't see the restroom or a water fountain. Didn't you have any?
No, we did not have a water fountain. We had to get our water from the pump at Whaley's Chapel Church, which was just a short distance down the road. I would send a couple of boys there with a bucket to fill and bring back. I taught the children how to make a cup out of paper to hold water. Sometimes after recess, we would all go down there with our cups and have a drink from the pump. Now about the toilets. We did not have that either. Outside there was one outhouse, and that was for the girls. The boys had to go to the woods.
Who started the fire in the stove each morning?
The older boys took turns keeping the wood box full, and 2 would come early and start the fire.
How did you start off the day? Did you ring a handbell?
Yes, I did, and I read verses from the Bible. We would sing America, the Star Spangled Banner, and songs like that, and repeat the Lord's Prayer. And
But how did you teach all those different grades in one room?
I put the grades in groups. The 1st and 2nd graders were together in one section, the 3rd and 4th in another. The older students in grade 5, 6, and 7 were seated in the back.
I bet it was really noisy.
Not really, William. I gave each group assignments to work on alone while I worked each group separately.
What subjects did the 1st and 2nd graders learn?
Oh, they started right from the beginning with the ABCs, learning numbers and how to count. They learned how to print letters and numbers and started to read words.
How about the 3rd and 4th graders?
In the 3rd grade, we added cursive writing, more advanced reading, and spent more time on drills and memorizing multiplication tables. The 4th continued at higher levels of arithmetic, and we added some history.
What did you teach the 5th, 6th, and 7th graders?
They continued reading, writing, and arithmetic at higher levels, and more history and geography were added. Also, they studied the rules of grammar. Another lesson we had at all levels was spelling bees. It was a lot of fun to see who could stay in the game until the end.
Bubba, what kinds of games did they play at recess?
Oh, when the weather was good and we could go outside, baseball was a favorite game. We used a board for the bat and had a grand time. I played with them also. I also turned the rope for jump rope, and there were the games of tag, hide and seek, London Bridge, drop the handkerchief. When the weather was bad, we played those inside.
Bubba, what did the children eat for lunch?
They brought their lunches in brown bags or little tin pails. I saw sausage biscuits, collard biscuits, ham biscuits, or biscuits with whatever was left over from the supper the night before.
Did you have report cards and parent-teacher conferences?
Oh yes, we had report cards and sent home every month. I gave A, B, C, D's, and F's. But they were not scheduled parent-teachers meetings as we have them today. But I did often talk with the parents at social gatherings.
Did anyone ever fail, Bubba?
Yes, but it was usually because they had missed too much school and couldn't make up the work. You see, many of the older ones in the 6th and 7th grades often had to quit to go to work for their families.
Bubba, did you ever have to use a hickory stick or spank anyone?
Not really. I don't think I ever did, but I think they knew there was a possibility, for it was an accepted method of punishment. And many teachers did spank. I remember one boy that was a real pest. At recess, he was continually bothering the girls. One day, I made him go inside the school and stay while we finished recess. At the end of the day, I told him if he couldn't behave, not to come back, and he didn't.
Bubba, did you really like being a teacher?
I love being a teacher, just like I love you now. All these little children were so sweet and nice. I really did like to teach. I enjoyed every bit of it. I remember when we could say little poems and things, and we would have plays like Goldilocks and the Three Bears and have things like that, and they enjoyed it, and I did too.
We hope you've enjoyed the story of our one-room schoolhouse. It's the mission of the Lenoir County Historical Association to preserve and promote local history. We welcome your participation and support.